I'm gonna say one. You're gonna say two. I'm gonna say three. You're gonna say four. One,
Two,
three,
four,
five,
six,
7,
eight,
9,
10,
11.
12.
That's the countdown for the MMCast movie show. I'm your host, Alex Kessler, with my co-host, Ben Bateman. This is a new thing we're doing. We were recording for patrons, which you should all check out, a kind of pre-show situation that originally was supposed to be like a 10-minute bonus content thing that there will still be 10 minutes of bonus content, more magic-themed for there. It just evolved into us having a 30 to 45-minute conversation every week. That was like, oh, this is just a whole new podcast that we like talking about movie content of different varieties. And so there's a chance this just becomes a comic book movie and TV show. But we'll talk about other things that as we watch them, as movies come back. I did get to go to a movie theater for the first time, which we'll touch upon in a second. But before we do that, make sure to, this is the time where you hit that like button. I see you watching this, listening to us talk, and there's a like button down there that you can press, and that would make you the hero of this MCU, the Masters of Modern Cinematic Universe.
I want to divert from comic book movie content for a second to talk about. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but it's been with me heavily for a couple weeks here. My just ridiculous love for the show Ted Lasso. I want to talk about
some
it.
Ted Lasso.
And I've been trying to what it is about Ted Lasso that feels so unique and special, because it's not that, like, there's a phenomenon when people try to explain it, like, what is it about this show that's so good? It's not just like, this is a good show about sports with a likable character. It's like, there's a feeling that I'm noticing Ted Lasso. I'm on my second watch of it right now in 2 weeks. I'm just rewatching it because the first experience was so, like, positive. I like wanted that positivity back in my life, so I just decided to do it again, because I couldn't think of anything else that would give me the same kind of positivity.
Have you watched The Good Place?
No, somebody else just recommended that to me, right in the same conversation.
It's another like recent masterfully done comedy show that is like good vibes. And Ted Lasso is similar. Like that when I watched Ted Lasso, that was a kind of the vibes I got was like do you know what the plot of The Good Place is?
It's all the good people that go to the good
yeah,
part
it's
of heaven,
it's like it's like
belong there?
it's the version of heaven, right? Like, and then you go to the good place, and then the lead character, who is played by Anna from Frozen, Kristen Bell, doesn't believe that she belongs there, and kind of knows like she's like a bad person, and so it's like her trying to blend in. And it's like really sweet and really funny and smart and witty, and like obviously like it's a very high concept kind of idea, so they go through it and it's fun. I loved it. I thought it was really great. I watched it in Hong Kong, like the first 2 seasons, like on a trip there, and then Ted Lasso has similar like good vibes. It what's cool about The Good Place too is how it was created. It was after he like did, I think it's the guy who did Office, Parks and Rec, 30 Rock, and then they were just like, do whatever you want. And he was like, I'm going to make this show about death.
I think now that I've heard this recommendation from you as well, I'm going to watch it. I may even start tonight. And
it's got Ted dancing.
Yeah, I love Ted dancing. I think one of the things that I'm finding so like remarkable about this is that a lot of you guys who listen to this know that I compete in this thing called the Movie Trivia Schmodown. It's like the largest movie trivia league in the world, and it's heavy level of competition. It's very competitive. It's like a sport. It is a sport. There's a cash prize and everything. And you're expected when you compete to know everything. I play in the singles and the teams division, which is regular movie trivia. It's not like there's geek stuff and there's Star Wars trivia, but those are their own divisions. This is all movies, so it includes those things too. And I could get asked about anything. So I study incessantly. I spend a ridiculous amount of time studying, and I watch a ton of movies. Plus, up until the pandemic, I was reviewing everything. So my sort of bandwidth to watch shows went away about 3 years ago. I just stopped watching TV, and I would watch shows if something really specific came up, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, shows that felt like they were necessary parts of my like industry. But otherwise, I just didn't watch shows because they were too time consuming. And so I found myself watching Ted Lasso and thinking like, this feels different. and enjoyable in a way that movies, even the best ones, don't really get. They get a moment or two in the movie that makes me feel this good. And sometimes, like a movie like Love, Simon a few years ago was one of the times where I was like, God, this movie was just good. I loved the characters. I loved the story. This movie just killed it. But so rarely does that happen. And if you get a show like Ted Lasso or a show like The Good Place, it sounds like, that has multiple seasons. I've heard Schitt's Creek is kind of like this too, actually.
Yep, that's another one. I haven't.
Yeah.
So Schitt's Creek is one of the shows that Whitney watched while we were recording this podcast, where it's like I've caught a bunch of episodes because she would watch it when we weren't, but because she started it during like me traveling or whatever, I like was never able to fully catch up. So I haven't seen every episode. It's one of the shows that like if traveling starts happening again, I'll probably watch from the beginning. I just can't watch it because Whitney's watched it, and yeah. But it also has really good vibes. Similar kind of situation.
So in Ted Lasso, did you have a favorite part or character or angle in the show? Like, what spoke to you the most?
I'm like, because I watched this like now like 2 months ago, so I'm like, and I've watched a lot of stuff since then. What did I love about Ted Lasso? I loved that he just wins people over. I also loved the bit of like the like soccer fans at the bar that like hate his guts, but he's just like, yay. Yeah. I think just like that, it like, I think that's one of the reasons it's such good. Like, it, like for those who don't know, it's about a like second tier football coach who moves to the
college
football coach that moves to England to coach a soccer team, not knowing anything about the sport soccer. This and revealed in the first episode is that the now owner of the team is the ex-wife of the previous owner. She got it in the divorce and is actively trying to dismantle the team and make it unsuccessful because it's something that her ex-husband cared about. But Ted Lasso,
it is the plot of Major League, basically. Except they just,
Except Ted Lasso is like the kindest human on the planet and is able to like win over or through a series of episodes the community at large, and it's really sweet and great, and it's really funny.
There's also like, you kind of end up loving all the characters. Like in the end, there's a lot of very likable characters on the show, and you love all the relationships in the end. And like, he's also like not a cartoon character, which is what it kind of seems like if you watch the trailers. It's what it kind of seems like it's going to be in certain moments right at the beginning. It seems like, how could this person be a real person that I actually would like think there was any stakes or I would root for at all? Mm-hmm. Like, how is this person not just super annoying? And he's not. Like, there's all these great moments. Like, you remember there's that great scene. If you guys haven't watched Ted Lasso, mini spoiler. I'll just reference it. It's the darts scene.
Sure.
And like, because I think it's been referenced a lot as one of the better episodes and scenes in the show. And like his relationship to Rebecca, to the owner of the team, and specifically that scene and the way that like he's talking about, he's like giving that monologue as he's shooting, and he's like, I think why are you not curious? Why don't you ask more questions? Like, do you play a lot of darts? And then he's giving the story, and he gives like an example and a backstory about his dad in a brief comment that he makes. I was just thinking from a writing perspective, I was like, wow. In this one scene, this one moment, again, you get so much more, you learn so much more about this character. You get so much depth with a character who's full of punchlines. He's just full of jokes throughout the whole show. But every episode, you just love him more and more and more, and you love his effect on people more and more and more. And he wins over the people in the show exactly the same way he wins you over. Like, you are a member of the cast in the sense that he has to win you over. You have to, by the end of the show, like, believe that he's real and you want to root for this guy. It's just the best. I can't really describe anything that I've experienced like it in quite a while. It made me actively happy to watch the show.
Yeah, no, it's really, I definitely recommend it. It's weird because it's on Apple Plus, which like the benefit was then Whitney watched like every other one of the like Apple Plus shows in like the like month that we had paid for, because there's just no new content because COVID shut down production and we're in like a small black hole moment. So that was like something that she like, you buy it for Ted Lasso. It's worth Ted Lasso is worth paying the like $5 or whatever. And then you just get all this other content that's like decent to medium, and like I you can also get that as like a freebie. Yeah. The other thing I want to talk about is movie theaters experiences. I went to see Scream. So my in AMC, which I am now a partial owner of, with diamond hands to the moon, is allowing people to just rent out movie theaters, because in LA you are allowed to have 10, like it's like 20% capacity, but then I think someone did the math and they're like, oh, people are right now too afraid to go see a movie with strangers anyways, so these aren't filling up to that 20% capacity. And if we were just to rent this theater out to a person for $100 to $150, that's the amount of money we'd be making on this space if we were to just try and sell tickets separately. So let's just rent theaters out. And so my sister rented it out for, and we watched the movie Scream, which holds up. But also seeing a movie in movie theaters was so fantastic. I kind of didn't believe how much I loved being there from my perspective of it beforehand, right? Like, oh, we get to see movies at home. This is great. I got to see Raya. I like the moment I can go back to movie theaters. I'm going back to movie theaters forever.
It's something I miss so much. I'm about to put together so I got my first shot last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I qualified because of my autoimmune disorder with my back. And, well, it's my whole body, but my back is the story you guys know, because I had to have surgery because of this. I went and got my shot, and my next one is like towards the end of April. So by May, I will be like safe as far as like my own safety. I will still wear a mask, of course, to protect people, but like I will be safe. And I'm probably going to write my series of emails to all my press contacts back with the theaters, because I think come May, June, a lot of similar people will be in my position. As you know, we've heard May is when it's supposed to be eligible in the US. So like it seems like by May, June, there will be probably expanded capacity, and we'll be able to do theater experiences at like a somewhat regular level again. And as the summer goes on, movies will start releasing more normally. Maybe I'll get to start going and screen movies again and like review them again, because there's nothing sweeter than, number one, seeing everything and never paying for it. That's just a great thing. Like,
so
beyond anything else,
I will say, so between you and then one of my best friends from high school works at Nerdist. Between the two of you, I have been able to go to a lot of pre-screenings, and I kind of always like them less than see.
Yeah.
So that's not always true. Like I think you and me saw Power Rangers early, or it wasn't Power Rangers. It was.
I took you to the
X-Men.
The last really bad X-Men
the best X-Men movie, right. And but I've gone, and that was fine because like no one cared, or like seeing random movies early is fine. But like the big ones, I saw Civil War early, like 2 weeks early, and I saw I went to the Rogue One premiere with Rachel, and then even I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2 2 weeks early because it aired in Hong Kong 2 weeks early when I was there before it aired in the US. And it kind of sucks. You can't talk about it with anyone.
Yeah.
Like there's one of the reasons I love the MCU and seeing movies in theaters is that public zeitgeist where everyone's talking about it. And that first week, there's like a conversation happening about that movie. And if you see it early, you kind of just don't get to talk about it with anyone. And it also sucks that like when I don't get to go with you and Rachel, you're like two of the people that I used to go see movies with, like Rachel in high school and you as an adult. And so now just like, oh, that part of our friendship no longer exists unless you sneak me into your early showing.
Talking about it by the time.
I'm like, oh yeah, I think the Black Widow came out. Like, oh yeah, we saw it 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, cool.
I think a part of that though, that is what you're talking about, is that's the issue with if you are friends with someone who's in that industry, because you are then going to go to work or around friends who aren't. Whereas like Rachel or myself, I'm going to see 25 people that week that all saw it. So I get to have that experience that you're talking about.
Sure.
Because all those people did see it. So it doesn't, for me, I don't notice the difference. Where I do notice the major difference is when you have a movie that's medium good, like medium exciting, and we're all watching it together, like early to review it or whatever, and like there's just, I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of jaded already as a critic. Like it's just pretty impossible to see that many movies and not become a little bit jaded. But even with critics, when you see like a moment like Cap getting the hammer was like, it didn't matter that it was all critics. We all like shat our pants in the theater.
Sure.
Everybody had the same reaction. And when I got to see Infinity War it was a cast and crew screening, so they all like knew it was coming. same thing. When Tony got stabbed, it was silent. You could you could hear a pin drop, right?
Right.
So the best moments in the best movies play no matter who's watching the movie. But as far as like anything less than that, if you're watching with critics, like if I had seen that Dark Phoenix movie that we just talked about, that wasn't a good movie. And there was very little in that movie that anybody would have had any reaction to. Versus like if you're just with a bunch of fans who love X-Men and like really are excited, they might have like moments to things that like I'm just kind of like, just like, come on, this should be better than it is.
Oh yeah, and that's like I've actually argued that Friday night showings are the best time to see big tentpole movies, not even the Thursday night before. Because I used to make like a point to see like all of these movies Thursday night, and what I realized is Thursday night people care too much. And critics are same thing, right? They're trying to pay attention so they can take notes or pay attention. Or people on Thursday nights are like, no one talk. We want to hear. On Fridays, when you also get the drunk people that'll just start clapping and and like that's what I want in a movie. I want like the theater to be, and this is, I think I'm not the same as everyone else, but I want people on their feet cheering during the Cap moment, or like screaming no at the screen when Spider-Man dusts at the end of Infinity War. So like, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, but this is an experience that like you can't really even experience. And even seeing Scream, a movie that I've seen 100 times, and like in the theater again was like, oh, this is amazing. Like I have my cherry and blue raspberry half and half Slurpee. I have Reese's Pieces. They didn't have cookie dough bites because they were sold out, which was messed up. Never forgive AMC. I'm selling my stock. And just like, and that's a great movie too to go see in theaters again, because like there is so much classic great like screaming at the theater horror things, and there's also like it's aged really well, partially because it was a comedy horror movie, so it like is still kind of poignant. They didn't do anything that like was out of the norm, and there's like great lines because it's super 90s where like her boyfriend, and if you haven't seen Scream, I recommend it holds up for sure. It's just, it like has 90s vibes, but her like at one point the cops arrest a suspect and he's like in the police precinct and they're like, this is the biggest piece of evidence. Why? What are you doing your age with a cell phone? And that's like the thing that got him arrested.
What? Like, so let me see if I can remember this offhand. So you got Neve Campbell plays Sydney. Is that her name?
Correct.
Is she the main? Right. She's the main girl. Her boyfriend in the movie is played by Skeet Ulrich, who's like really handsome, not quite as handsome Johnny Depp.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
He's definitely very Johnny Deppish though.
Uh-huh.
His buddy is Matthew Lillard.
Yeah.
The tall, skinny guy. Right.
Who like A game.
He's great.
Kills it. Every movie he's in, he kills it. This might be his best movie. Maybe
not as good. Not quite as good as Wing Commander, but so actually that might not even be true. I think it is true. I think he's in Wing Commander. But then Courtney Cox is she's the reporter, yeah. Right? She's the cop is David Arquette.
Her best friend is Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan, yep, I knew that one. You got Jamie Kennedy is the like main dude
who
like knows all the rules.
This is his second movie ever, and really his first movie. So I, like
he steals the show.
Yeah, he ages not the worst, but probably like he's still good though. Like he's the kid who like knows all the rules, right? He knows the rules because he works at a Blockbuster. Once again, very 90s. And so he knows all the horror rules. He's like, you can't like drink or do drugs. You can't have sex. You can't do these things, otherwise you'll get killed. There's like a scene where the killer is behind him while he's watching Halloween, and Jamie Lee Curtis is in the movie, and he's screaming, "Turn around, Jamie! He's behind you, Jamie!" And then like now I realize that Jamie Kennedy is screaming, "Turn around, Jamie!" to Jamie Lee Curtis, but also himself as the killer is behind him. It's like extremely meta. At one point, like they open the door and like there's a janitor dressed in the Nightmare Before Elm Street, the Freddy Krueger costume, everything but the face, just like mopping as the janitor. There's like, because it's the same guy. It's the director of I was gonna
say it's Wes Craven, and so Drew Barrymore obviously at the beginning is she gets murdered, but so
And then the Fonz is the principal. I think that's the last real famous person.
Who was what?
The
Who's the
Fonz.
principal, you said?
Henry Winkler.
Oh, Henry Winkler's the principal. I would have missed that on the quiz. I think the last person that I'm forgetting. Isn't Cotton Weary? Isn't that Liev Schreiber?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
That's
yeah.
He's more relevant in the second one than the first one. He's
right.
who got blamed. So the whole mystery is a year before her mom was murdered, and he's who got blamed for that murder by her. And then things are revealed, and Courtney Cox did a whole expose on it that like defended him, and that's why everyone hates her. But whatever, you should watch Scream. All these minutia don't matter that much, but yes, Liev Schreiber is like, honestly, he was in it less than I remembered, partially because he's like very much in the second and third one.
Yeah, so I've only ever seen Scream 1. I know he's in the second one more, but I know the thing that's so cool about Scream when you go back and you look at the different eras of horror and you break it all up is that like there's like the original era, which is all the like 30s and 40s stuff, all that Universal monster stuff. Mm-hmm. And then that you get into like that 50s, 60s territory, and they're trying certain things out for the first time. So that's horror like didn't get
Hitchcock like era as well, right?
Thrillers, exactly. There's some creature horror. You get into zombie films, the first Romero movies in the late 60s. But the 70s is like when the slasher genre happens. Like 70s is where you get like pretty gory like exploitation. So Wes Craven,
like you have Elm Street, you have Halloween, and you have Friday the 13th, right? Those are like the three bastions of that era. And like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like a farther below.
That's like, so that's 74. So that's like the earliest of all of them. That one's actually pretty, that's really gory, but it doesn't capture a lot of the stuff. Like Halloween is 78, and of those movies, Halloween's the best. Halloween's the one that is like, feels the most like a modern horror movie. It's still pretty creepy. It's done on a super low budget. Friday the 13th, Voorhees isn't even in the first one. It's Pamela Voorhees in 1980. And then in 84 is Nightmare. And that's the Wes Craven one. And Wes Craven had done shit in the late 70s. He had done like, I want to say he did the Cannibals one, not Last House on the Left. The Mutant Cannibals, you know, they remade it.
The Hills Have Eyes?
Yes, Hills Have Eyes. He did that in the late 70s. Like he was making movies, and then Nightmare is the thing that like blew him up. But it's cool that he was part of that generation, and then he like, reinvented himself in the 90s with Scream. Like I actually think that's one of the coolest things about Wes Craven is that he made that movie, because Scream is so tonally different. It's like Scream is like part of that whole late 90s. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Well, it kind of created that, right? Because it came out before I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like the teen slasher of the late 90s was like a genre that basically was Scream who started it. I'm trying to think. There's there's a third one.
Scream is for sure the movie that started the thing you're talking about, and they're kind of comedy. They have like some real like self-aware comedy beats.
Scream is extremely self-aware. In fact, I saw Scary Movie before I saw Scream, and Scary Movie is literally beat for beat the movie Scream, with like I Know What You Did Last Summer backstory things sprinkled in. And like there are things that are in that movie that are identical, and even like the sequel to Scream is incorporated. But yeah, it's to the extent like when I watch Scream, I was like, oh, this movie is also a joke. So Scary Movie is a joke on a joke. I now understand.
I think it's also funny too that when you look at that era of horror, it was a lot of change happening all at once, because a lot of horror movies, late 80s into the 90s, did not really have a lot of pop. They weren't iconic in the same way. Movies that were big, like Candyman in 92, is like kind of a big deal, but like didn't matter that much. So you have Scream in 96. You've got that whole sort of genre of those teen movies that happens. You have the Blair Witch Project found footage movie that's like 99, so it's really close. Mm-hmm. It's a genre that gets created in the middle of the other one. And then the torture porn genre that is basically created from Japan. It's a bunch of Japanese movies that get remade. The Grudge gets remade. The Ring gets remade. You have all these like, and then Hostel and Saw, and that whole thing happens.
I do think those are two different, because there's the haunting genre, because the early 2000s also had The Haunting and 13 Ghosts and House on Haunted Hill, and then when and some that all came from The Ring, right? The Ring was a phenomenon, and Sixth Sense was a
Yeah.
phenomenon, and those two movies then were like, oh, what's other spooky movies? And they did The Grudge, and then those, and they all had a range of quality. And then late 2000 or mid 2000, so it was like early, it was like 2000 to 2004.
Yeah.
Then the second half of that decade was the torture porn one, where you have The Ring that started it, which The Ring one is a great movie.
Yeah.
Every studio took the wrong lesson, which is what happens when you have a great movie where they're like, oh, people want to see people get tortured by and be super gory, so let's do Hostel, when like the reason I just said it, why am I Saw is good because like the twist of, because like it's like a the organization of that movie is Memento levels good, where like everything that happens in it and the way it's layered is really, really well made. People want death traps, but then
I think
we
what's
got that
interesting
era of
too is
torture
that
porn.
what I think is interesting is that whole era of the basically 2000s, which had all those remakes too, right? They remade every single one of those classics. Rob Zombie remade Halloween, and then they remade Friday the 13th, and they remade
That feels
Nightmare with Jack Nicholson.
That feels like that happened after college, right? Like that feels like what the early 2010s was just remaking all of these movies. Because The Hills Have Eyes came out as a remake, but that was much more torture porn, as was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. But
they remade pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
It was the thing that you mentioned about that haunting genre that I think is especially funny, is that they tried to resurrect that haunting genre in the early 2000s, but it wasn't really taken seriously as much as I think they wanted it to be. The real reinvention of the haunting genre is James Wan again for Blumhouse with Insidious and then The Conjuring and all those movies. And that's like the era we're currently in, is like, that's basically the era we're in, is that like James Wan made 3 Insidious movies, Conjuring 2, The Curse of La Llorona, the whatever the one I'm forgetting is, The Nun, 3 Annabelle movies. Like there's been so many in the like haunted thing, haunted house, haunted kid over the course of the last like 7 or 8 years now.
And then like TV horror is also like American Horror Story was supposed to be like about that house, like a horror show, and then the Bly Manor and House on the Haunted Hill. House on a Hill is like one of the better horror TV shows I've ever seen. Also recommend that one.
You mean the Haunting of Hill House? You mean
Haunting of Hill House? Sorry, House of Haunted Hill is the movie. It's the same. It's all the same book. They're all the same plot. I didn't realize it. Like I have distinct memories of watching the trailer for the House on Haunted Hill and like leaving the movie theater. It was like too spooky for me to watch the trailer. I was like 8. I was a scaredy cat. But and then watching this movie, then going back, I was like, oh, it's the same movie. But then there's The Haunting, which is not the same movie.
That's the Liam Neeson one, I think, right?
There's the one where like there's 3 big it's 13 Ghosts, The Haunting, and House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill is just like a bad version of the movie, the TV show, the Netflix show. The Haunting is like a billionaire is paying these 8 people to go live in this haunted house on whatever, and it's got murder happens. And then 13 Ghosts is way wilder. It has Tony Shalhoub and the girl from American Pie.
Allison Hannigan?
No, the
Tara Reid?
No, the exchange student.
Shannon Elizabeth.
Shannon Elizabeth, and like for some reason there's a house made of glass that all the ghosts are like someone's caught a bunch of ghosts and put it in there, and they like there's traps. It's weird. Honestly, it probably ages better than some of these other movies because it's just like wild. And Tony Shalhoub's the main character.
I didn't watch any of those movies. Horror was a genre that I did not like. So every movie we've talked about, if I've seen it, I have seen it in the last 3 or 4 years. I've watched a lot of them. I've gone back and I've watched the originals on a lot of the old ones. I had a period of time where I watched all the 4 of those first Conjuring movies, none of the Annabelles, the first 2 Insidious, Sinister, Saw 1. I watched these all back to back, like, I don't know, like 6 months ago.
We missed Hellraiser.
Just to try to have...
But yeah, keep going.
Say what?
We missed Hellraiser, but yeah, that was like another one of the 80s.
In the 80s. Yeah. So it's certainly an interesting genre. I mean, I didn't realize that this conversation was going to turn into like the savage horror discussion, but like it's interesting.
Hey, a history of, we talked about Ted Lasso and a history of horror. I can't
Yeah.
think of two. My other, I was going to bring up an anime show I watched, but we'll talk about that next week. Jujutsu Kaisen is like dope and everyone should watch it. All right, but thank you once again. This is a new thing we're trying out. We're going to try and releasing once a week a movie conversation onto the on our YouTube channel, and we'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts. Please comment below if you think we missed an era or what you think what your favorite horror movie is, and make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you want more movie talk for the MMcast movie show. We don't have a title, untitled movie show. People are like Masters of Movies. I'm like, that's probably what we should call it.
Masters of Movies is probably what it's going to be called. Yeah, and I guess the last thing I wanted to say is just because I've been forgetting to do this every week is you guys will hear this. Probably, I guess you'll hear this next week. So the song will already be out. I'm releasing the first song from the first piece of music album I've ever put out in my whole life. By the time you hear this, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, it's on Amazon, it's all the various places. It's called Sorry for Tonight. It is on an album that's coming out this summer. I'll be touring in August, doing 8 shows all over the U.S. So I would love to have you guys check it out. It would mean the world to me. Just look me up on Spotify or wherever, and I'll put the link to the show. I'm playing a show on the 10th of April, a digital show. In the link to this video in case you guys want to grab a ticket, and if you don't want to pay for a ticket, just send me a message. I'll figure it out because I'd rather have you there. So that's what I'm doing. All right, guys, thanks for watching.
Yeah, see you next week.